my name is Gudrun from GE Designs. Welcome to our Kimberly Quilt Along. Hi everybody, we're so excited to have you here. As I said before, my name is Gudrun from GE Designs, and with me on the set, or really behind the set, is Mr. HP running the show. We will be spending the day with you making amazing quilts. Kimberly Quilt Along is here, so thank you so much for being here, whether you're with us on YouTube or Facebook. I know you are here from all over the world, so we so much appreciate you spending this Sunday with us, and it's going to be a good time. That's first and foremost. Now, to make sure you find our videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that bell button that is going to notify you when we go live. And if you're watching on your phone, you have to make sure that your phone tells you too. So make sure that you get those notifications from YouTube or Facebook. Facebook, you just have to like our page and sign up for notifications. We've noticed that Facebook has changed some things about their videos, so they don't normally pop up anymore. I don't know how to fix that. We're going to dive into it. But you can always just go to our page on Facebook, which is GE Quilt Designs, and click on videos, and then you'll find it. So, of course, let's start by talking a little bit about how this day is going to go. And before I do that, I want to encourage everybody to, in the comments, introduce yourself, say hi to everybody, tell us where you're from and what you're going to be working on today. We have a lot of folks that are maybe grouping together. They have little groups all over, so that's really exciting. I've heard from a lot of folks that are going to be making their first quilts today, and that is just a thrill and a blessing to me. That is what my mission is, to get more people into quilting, because it's the best. It's just the best. So how the day is going to go, I'm going to go live. We're going to go live 4 times throughout the day. This is our first session. And so it's 10 a.m. here in Minnesota, Central Time. And then in 2 hours, which is 12 o'clock Central Time, and then 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock will be our session. So 4 sessions total. If you miss us, if you have to step away, you can always find our videos. We will not only, you can go to YouTube if you're on YouTube or Facebook, you will find them there. I will post them in our group on Facebook as well. But come tomorrow, if you miss anything, we will also link all of the parts, all of the shows on our Kimberly Quilt Along blog. That is the place where you can find all the information that you need, even if you're catching us now a few days later and want to hop in and make a Kimberly quilt. Go to our blog and find the Kimberly Quilt Along blog post. It will have all the information, how to get the patterns, and then also some fun stuff. So let's talk about the fun stuff. We have some recipes. This is something that I've been doing for all of our quilt alongs. I feel like it brings us all together. And of course, during the pandemic, we were all separated, and it kind of created a little bit of a unity in our amazing community that we've built. So some of you I know have already made up some of those recipes. So what I posted today was a couple of snacks that we love. One of them is an egg salad. It's a chickpea egg salad, so no eggs in there. It's vegan, but you can, of course, choose to do whatever you want. That one, I made a batch of this yesterday as well. Unfortunately, it didn't make it till today.
Delicious.
It was totaled. Yes. So that one is really great, just some chickpeas, some veggies. Otherwise, really pretty much the ingredients that you would normally put in an egg salad. And then the other one is a little bit more hearty. It's a pasta salad, and it's a Southwest pasta salad with some black beans and tomatoes and a really awesome dressing that you can make using cashews. You can, if you don't want to go through that or don't have it, you can just use mayo or a little oil or something, and you can get the similar results, all the flavor. I made a batch of that, and we have it set aside for our lunch here. Looking forward to that. I also include some cocktail recipes. It wouldn't be Mixology and Gudrun without some cocktail recipes. So I did 2 cocktail recipes because now it's Sunday morning, it's brunch time for a lot of folks, and a lot of folks like to have a little mimosa during their brunch. So I included a mimosa recipe for a cherry bomb mimosas. So that's just your sparkling wine or champagne with a little bit of pineapple juice, and then that juice from the maraschino cherry jar. You throw one maraschino cherry in there. You can kind of adjust the amount because it is really sweet, and it's a really tasty, tasty treat. Now, then I chose another cocktail recipe to have later in the day because I don't like to waste a bottle of bubbly if I'm opening one. So this little cocktail is I'm calling it Strawberry Fizz. So you just need some fresh strawberries, lemon juice, a little simple syrup or agave, and then you top it with the rest of your sparkling wine. Of course, they're both really easily adaptable to make virgin. So without alcohol, all you need is just some sparkling cider, sparkling water. If you want no flavor in it, you can use sparkling grape juice, whatever else, and then pretty much follow the rest of it, and it'll be delicious. So, of course, I highly recommend getting most of your cutting done before diving into those. So I'm going to go through my first step before we crack our bottle open with you guys. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about the pattern. It was available in your account yesterday, 24 hours ago. So those of you, I answered a lot of emails late last night. I tried to get to everybody that were having trouble. And you may have noticed you got a second notice about your Kimberly pattern. That was just me making sure everybody got that email, because I got quite a few emails about people not getting that, so I just sent it out again. No worries. There's no major changes in the pattern. The only thing that changed is on the very last page, you have the layout picture. This little note said 2.0. It's, of course, 3.0, as many of you would probably figure out very easily. There's no other changes to the pattern, so no worries. You don't have to reprint or anything. So those of you that haven't gotten your pattern, you can do that in two ways: by pre-ordering the Stripology Mixology book. It's available for pre-order both as a paper copy or as a ebook. And of course, it's not available yet. It's at the printer, so it will be released hopefully later in August once we get it back. And but once you purchase, you go to your downloadable files on your account. So you sign into your account on GE Quilt Designs, go to My Downloadable Files. Then you have to find the book where it's listed. Once you click on that, you will see two files, two PDF files for the Kimberly, and one is the Kimberly extended pattern. I call it the extended pattern because you guys will get the 2.0 and 3.0 versions, which will not be in the book. Yes. And if you're not ready to buy the whole book, of course, you can also just purchase the Kimberly pattern. That is a PDF, so same process of finding your files that way. All right. So I want to, I mentioned earlier that we have a lot of folks from all over the world with us. This is international community, which is so exciting for me, being that I'm not from here. So I'm always excited when we can join the world into one community. And so we have, I didn't even count all the countries, but we have quite a lot of countries represented. We have all 50 states of the U.S., and we have 6 states and territories of Canada with us. We have 6 states, territories of Australia. Then we have, of course, Iceland, Malaysia, New Zealand, Norway, Spain, Sweden, UK, Czech Republic, Denmark, Germany, Israel, Slovakia, Switzerland, Mexico, among others. This was just, I wrote down really fast. So thank you all for being a part of this amazing, amazing journey that we've had with our quilt-alongs. And my biggest pride is the fact that we've been able to create such an amazing, positive community. So let's keep that going and bring that goal in, which is today is about not finishing your quilt. It is not. It's about having fun, doing what we love together, maybe learning a few things in the process, and the end result The bonus is that we end up with an amazing, fun quilt that we can then finish and enjoy ourselves, or have the extra joy of passing it on to somebody and give it away. So that's what I love about quilting. It's all the multiple steps of satisfaction you get out of it. All right, any questions before we kick this off with some real sewing? Do you see any questions?
Yeah, what did you have for breakfast today?
Oh, that was the big question, of course. What did I have for breakfast? Now, since these days for us are pretty long and nonstop, even though we get breaks between being live, those breaks are full. We are answering questions, we are prepping for the next one, so we never really get a chance to sit down. So we always have a hearty, good breakfast. And of course, it's been tradition to make our breakfast sandwich, the famous Stack and Whack breakfast sandwich.
Yeah, yeah.
There it is. So this one is the one we had this morning because I didn't have a vegan egg, so we used a regular egg. But I did write up the recipe for when we had our retreat. So there it is, and I even took a photo of all of my ingredients just to show you. I know you probably can't get all of them, and I know this print is pretty small, but I did post this in the Facebook group, and we will make sure to add this to the blog as well, to the Kimberly Quilt-Along blog for those that have been asking for the recipe. It really is just a typical breakfast sandwich with some of my favorite things.
Delicious.
It is always very satisfying, and it keeps us going for a long time. So that's that. Of course, we will kick this off, the demonstration, the part one. I'll take you through the first steps of the pattern, and I will show you using the Stripology squared ruler and the Stripology XL ruler. Just know if you have the original Stripology ruler, all of the instruction pertain to the XL will be the same for the original. So if you have the original Stripology ruler, just watch closely when I talk about the XL. So what I did, I pre-recorded the steps. So we're going to watch that video. And then afterwards, I can take all your questions and do a kind of a live reiteration, going into more detail if you need more detail. All right?
The playlist.
Oh, I did not talk about the playlist. Mr. HP has put together a music playlist. If you want to do a little dancing in your sewing room today, if you have Spotify, the playlist is called Kimberly QAL 2022. Easiest way to find it, go to the Kimberly Quilt-Along blog. There's a link right there to it. So that is always something fun that joins us too. We're not only doing the same quilt pattern, we're listening to the same music and hopefully having the same snacks. It's kind of like we're all together. I also wanted to mention, I told you to say hi in the comments and keep commenting throughout our 4 sessions because we are going to have door prizes. Yes, we're going to have giveaways. So after each segment, we have a random comment generator that will pick 1 comment from Facebook, 1 comment from YouTube, and those 2 winners will be announced in our next segment, and you'll get some prizes, which is always cool and fun. So make sure you keep commenting. Throw some questions out there because I will look through those always after our live session and try to answer as many as I can. Yeah, squared ruler for sure. That is my ruler of choice for this one just because it is a little bit smaller than the XL, so it's easier to maneuver. But you can use the squared, the XL, or the original. And I will also show you how to use just regular rulers. We have instructions for everything, and the pattern will show you all versions.
Where's Colby at today?
Colby is sleeping still. He went on a sleepover with his sister. My daughter's fun is going to be leaving for college next weekend, so she wants every moment with him. So he got to go on a sleepover. But I'm sure he's whining for his mama.
Of course.
So he's probably going to come over later today. So he'll come over and say hi. All excited. All right, so let's dive into our part 1 of the Kimberly. Are you ready? I know you're excited to get going. This quilt is quick. It's simple and easy, which is why I recommend it if you wanted to try your hand at quilting for the first time. It's a great one to start with, especially if you have the Stripology tools. So it's going to go quick. I'm sure a lot of quilts will be finished today, at least the tops. So I'm excited to see the progress. So let's get going with our part 1 of the Kimberly Quilt Along. Hi, my name is Gudrun from GE Designs, and in this video, I'm going to take you through part 1 of putting together the Kimberly quilt. First, let's start with some of the tools that I recommend using for the quilt. If you have the Stripology rulers, you can use either the squared ruler or the XL. Either one would work perfectly. I'm also going to show you how you can use regular rulers. On top of the rulers, I highly recommend the GE Easy ruler stickers, which come in 2 different colorways. You can use either or all mixed together. That will give you 6 different colors for the arrows. And an optional tool is our point trimmers. I'll be showing you how you can use the 90-degree trimmer out of the pack, but of course not necessary. It's just one of the optional tools. So let's get started. We're going to start right away with our fabric selection. We're starting with our 10-inch squares. And what you want to do to start with, I usually do this for my whole quilt just to stay organized. I want to pair up the 2 squares I want together in a block. So depending on your fabrics, you want to create some kind of a contrast between the 2 squares you want together in a block, because then you will just see the blocks better. But of course, some colorways are going to create less contrast and others are going to create more. So I have chosen 2 that work together, and I'm just going to lay them right on top of each other, right side up. I always do it right side up, so we'll end up with the same exact pieces. Now I have some other pairings here, so once you get comfortable, you can stack more pairs up than just the 2, but I'm just going to start with the 2. And so they are nicely aligned here. And if you have directional fabrics, I have this one. It's directional, so I have it faced right side up. We are going to be cutting this on point, so you just want to make sure if you have directional fabrics that you always start with it right side up and then turn it always the same way. So right now I'm going to turn it counterclockwise on point. So I just want to make sure that I do that with all of my fabrics once I start cutting the rest of them. Always turn them the same way, so then my blocks will all end up the same. So first I'm going to start with the squared ruler. So we're just going to line up the center line, the thick white line that goes through the center. We're going to line it on the corners of the squares and also the horizontal one on the corners of the squares. Now you will need the pattern. I'm going to actually flip my colors so that you can see this better. The blue is kind of fading in, so I think you can see the yellow better this way. So you will need your pattern. It will tell you exactly which slits to cut through if you're using the Stripology rulers. So you want to go ahead and do that. I have mine marked with the arrow stickers. So I make my 2 cuts through the stack. So we have our 2 triangles here, obviously from both fabrics. I'm going to set these aside. And then we're going to make our second cut. We're going to turn the stack. And again, it really doesn't matter this time which way you turn it, but I'm just going to always turn things counterclockwise. And then I know that that's kind of what I do. So for the second cut, we can do a couple of different things. You can fold this over, which is the easiest way. Make a little crease here in just the top fabric. So if you have many layers, you just need to mark the top fabric. If you have a hard time seeing that crease, I like to sometimes just take an erasable pen or something to mark it so I can see it better. And then that little crease, I'm going to line up with the center line on my ruler again. So lining that one up. And I'm going to make the same cuts as I did before with the squared ruler. And now I have these shapes here from this. So this will make 2 blocks. One will have a yellow center and one will have a blue center. So I'm going to set these aside, and now I'm going to show you the exact same thing, just cutting with the XL ruler. So I have my 2 pieces of fabric I want in a block. So here they are, lining them up. And again, even though these are not really that directional, but I want to turn this the same way I've been doing. And for the XL ruler, we don't have that thick center line on it because we want to just face it right side up. So we are going to create it as listed in the pattern. I explain how you can put little markings on the 6 1/4 line. So that is the little dotted lines that are between the 6 and the 6 1/2 inch slits. So I have my yellow arrows just pointing at that little line. So now I can make sure to line that up with the corners of the squares. Just realign here. There we go. So once I have that lined up, I am cutting through the exact same slits as described with a squared. And I have that marked with red arrows. And again, finishing up the same way. Turning it, marking that center just on the top one. There we go, so I can see it. And repeat the same parts. Using that dotted line I marked here for the center, and then making sure there's a horizontal line along the bottom, using the same slits to make my second cuts. There we are. Here we are ready for another pair of blocks. Setting that aside. Now for this last one, I'm going to show you how to do this with just regular rulers. So I have another set of squares that I want together in a block. I'm going to put the solid one on the top. And also turn it counterclockwise. So I have my regular ruler here. And what I have done is, as described in the pattern, I use the line as described in the pattern, and I've put markings on that. That is going to act as my center line. I'm lining that up with the 2 corners of the block. And then I'm making a cut just on the outside of the ruler. And then I just need to turn the whole thing and repeat it on the other side. So all of these measurements are described in the pattern. And so just lining up those points, making the second cut. And same thing with turning. We're marking the center and using those center creases to line up with those marks that I had on my ruler. On each side. And there we go. So that is just the first part, cutting our squares apart. And next step will be going into assembling the block. I want to show you a little shortcut if you are using the squared ruler. So now I've started the first cut, I've cut the triangles off. And so for the second cut, as I turn this one, instead of folding and marking that center, when I have my squared ruler on here, I can actually just use any horizontal line on the bottom. I like to use the 8 1/2 inch little white square to align here with the bottom, actually the little black line above it, because I know that this part down here is just about 8 1/2 inches. So I just use this line to align with the bottom. I see that it's kind of centered on the 8 1/2, and then I just check where my points are landing on the ruler. There should be just a little space on each side. Most importantly, there should be even space on each side. So then I know it's centered. I don't have to mark my center. I don't have to line it up. I know it's centered enough for me to make my cuts. And there it is. Just a little shortcut if you want to try it, but you don't have to. So all of the cutting took us through steps 1 and 2 in the pattern. So now we're going to start the assembly, and we're starting with step 3. We have 2 squares from the fabrics that we chose together to go into a block. So now we're just going to sew one color on the outside of the other, like this. These should fit really great. Just flip this on top. You might want to pop some pins in here because this is a bias edge. Both of them are bias, so you want to sew these on both sides. This is why it is helpful with this pattern to treat your fabrics with some best press or a little starch before you start. But honestly, if you didn't, no big deal, because we're going to trim everything up in the end. So we want to just sew down each side so that we have pieces that end up looking like this. One with blue on the outside and one with yellow. So for the pressing, if you're doing the regular Kimberly 1.0, you can actually just make it easy on yourself and always press away from the center. But if you want the opportunity to possibly do 2.0 or 3.0, I recommend pressing always towards the darker fabric. So pick either one that's the darker and press out towards the darker, the blue in this case, on this piece, and then towards the center, towards the blue on this one. So it'll be out and in, just as described in the Kimberly extended pattern. In the book, you will only see it pressed away from the center because that is just for the regular Kimberly. So that is step number 3. Moving on to step number 4. In that case, we're going to be sewing the triangles to the outside of these 2 pieces. So 2 things to consider here. We want to make sure that when the blue is on the outside, we want to make sure that we put blue on each side as well. Now, if you used any directional fabrics, you want to make sure that you put the right triangle on the right side. So make sure you check that. For example, this fabric has all the birds flying in the same direction, so they're all flying this way. So I really want this one to be on that side and this on that side, so they're all flying in the same direction. Not that it really matters for this particular fabric, but other ones it may. So we want to sew these on, and as you can see, they are a bit oversized. So 2 things that you can do, or actually 3. One would be for the really brave ones. If you want to just eyeball this, you can flip this over, and you want to extend a little triangle out on each side. You want to make them even, semi-even, and just sew by eyeballing it. If you don't like that, you can also just fold this in half, make a little crease, do the same with your triangle, make a crease in the middle, and then you just match up those creases, pin it on, and you are good to go. If you do have the Easy Point trimmers, you can take it a step further and make it really easy for you to match these up. So what you would do here is take the triangles, use the 90-degree trimmer, and just align it the long side of the trimmer along the long side of the triangle. We're going to move it all the way to the edge and trim off each corner here. And that way, once you put these on, they will fit just perfectly on each side. So you'll be sure to have them centered correctly. So choose whatever method works for you, and make sure you pin, because again, we're working with the bias sides. And then we are going to press, and we're going to press again. If you are thinking of doing either 2.0 or 3.0, we want to press towards the dark fabric, so this would go inwards and this one would be pressed outwards. So you would end up with a blue centered block with yellow on the outside, just like we have here. And then we have a yellow center with blue on the outside. And so just when we are pressing, I just want to explain this. because when we're pressing, sometimes we don't want to push it with the iron because we're having bias edges everywhere. So we want to make sure we push with our fingers first before you bring that iron over. And then, even though they might not look perfectly square to you, but in the next part of the pattern, we're going to trim these down. So this is how you want to end up with, after part 1, you have blocks with dark on the outside, you have blocks with light on the outside. Well, there it is, everybody. Simple, simple. Let me address the biggest question for everybody that are using the XL rulers. Yes, I did it a little bit differently, the demonstration, than it is in the pattern, and I'm going to show you how it is in the pattern. There was a reason for this. So the reason is you can do both ways if you have the XL. I gave you another option. The second reason is those of you with the original Stripology rulers, the first one that is not available anymore, that is the exact instruction for you. So let me just show you real quick, those of you that were confused, I was using the wrong side of the XL. So what I showed you, well, let's just go over to the overhead. What I showed you was using the regular side with the black numbers on the bottom, but in the pattern, it actually uses the other side. So you turn it around and you have the white squares, and then you have the white numbering on the bottom. So that's what's described in the pattern. Simple enough. You would just take your fabrics, and since we are talking about this, I wanted to reiterate about the directional fabrics. If you have directional fabrics, just stack them up as they are looking at you, and then make sure you always rotate to the same side when you are doing your cuts. So you would literally just layer your rulers, so then you use the white markings just like on the squared ruler on the XL. So it's the white center markings through the center here and here, and then you would make your cuts on the 5.5 marked here with the corners. So I hope that explains it. Either way, it works the exact same way. All right, so let's address some other questions. Any other questions? I think everybody's really excited. I gave you lots of options for adding those triangles. And here's what I want to recommend. Exactly the question I was going to answer. If your squares aren't exactly 10 inches, will that make a difference? So if you have a little bit smaller squares, I would just continue on and do exactly like the pattern states. If your patterns are smaller than 9 inches, then maybe you need to adjust your measurements. But I would just keep everything the same, and then once we finish the blocks, you can always see if you can trim it to the size we want to, or just go down a size. Now, if your squares are not square, if you're using, for example, pre-cuts, they are sometimes not completely square, and I shouldn't say sometimes, most times. So if the difference is, if they may be 10 by 9 7/8, it's okay. I would just continue on. You will just look at them after you pieced your blocks and think they're really lopsided. But don't worry, the trimming will fix all of that. It will fix all of that. However, if it's a 1/4 inch or more difference between the sides, I would probably trim them to a square. So if your squares are 9.5 or 9 3/4 one way and 10 the other way, I would trim them to 9 3/4 or 9.5 and start there, because the skewing will be too much when they're not that square. So that is my recommendation. Somebody said, can I use 9-inch squares? Go for it. You'll just have to trim it smaller in the end. All right, any other questions on that? The pattern is going to be in the upcoming Stripology Mixology 3 book. It's available for pre-order, so if you pre-order it, you will receive the Kimberly pattern as a PDF download. You can also purchase the Kimberly pattern separately as a PDF pattern on our website. All right, so I wanted to just mention, you should not take, if you're making a king-size quilt, don't start by cutting all of your squares and do all of that before moving on to the next step. I always like, and I do this every time I teach a class in person and in my quilt-alongs, I want you to just take a few. So I like to work with like 8 or 12 blocks at a time. 12 is kind of a good number, because if you make a lap size, then That's 4 times 12. So that means you would take 6 pairs of squares and work with those, go through those steps that I just explained. And then if you finish that, then you can go to your next set and cut those and finish those, if you know what I mean. So then we are able to go through all of the steps today. Even if you don't finish all of your blocks, you finish all the steps and you will have no problem doing the rest of them on your own. Because it's just something about when we physically do things, things kind of set better in our brains than just watching. Are we doing bias on the bottom when sewing? Well, both edges are biased, so it doesn't really apply here, which is why I recommended just a little bit of best press or spray. But both edges are biased, so that is not going to work for us. Bob is on both sides. It's a double bob. So that's why I didn't mention that. All right. Any other questions? Show the new XL ruler cutting again. I'll just show the setup. It's actually in your pattern. The setup for the XL, the images are in your pattern. So it should be easy to look at. So, and I wouldn't say this is new. This is how it is in the pattern. I just showed you another way to do it in the video. So here it is. Using the center white lines. They're a little hard to see on this yellow, but center white lines, and then you make your cuts according to the pattern. And all is good. This is not the correct one, just so you know. There it is. All right. I think we are good on some major questions. I know you're anxious to get going. So we are going to finish off our first live, and we will get you back here at 12 p.m. Central Time. That is in about an hour and 20 minutes. And so we're going to celebrate this kickoff, aren't we, Mr. HP?
We sure are.
So we are alone in the warehouse on a Sunday. It's pretty quiet over here. And it's like, you know how when you were a kid, you watched Willy Wonka, and it was like, how cool would it be to be like left alone in a candy factory or or in the candy store? I kind of always get that feeling when I'm alone here, walking through the fabric. It's like, ooh, I could do whatever I want here. But let's celebrate our kickoff, and 1, 2, 3. Woo! And we will see you back at 12 p.m. Central Time with the next steps of the Kimberly. Good luck, everybody, and make sure to post your photos if you're on Facebook in Gudrun's Quilt Crew. That's how we check you guys out. Bye, everybody.